The one undifferentiated intelligent infinity, unpolarized, full and whole, is the macrocosm of the mystery-clad being. Unity, at this approximation of understanding, cannot be specified by any physics, but only be activated or potentiated intelligent infinity due to the catalyst of free will. This may be difficult to accept. However, the understandings we have to share begin and end in mystery. Picture, if you will, the one infinite. You have no picture. Thus, the process begins. The first distortion, free will, finds focus. This is the second distortion, known to us as logos, the creative principle or love. This intelligent energy, thus, creates a distortion known as light. After this point, the manyness of distortions are equal one to another. From these three distortions come many hierarchies of distortions, each having its own paradoxes to be synthesized, no one being more important than another. In the first distortion of the law of one, it is recognized that the creator will know itself. The second distortion is defined against the background of intelligent infinity or unity, or the one creator, with the primal distortion of free will. The term love, then, may be seen as the focus, the choice of attack, the type of energy of an extremely, shall we say, high order, which is of an ordering nature due to its enabling function. It causes intelligent energy to be formed from the potential of intelligent infinity and orders in a cumulative way, from greater to lesser, so that when its universe, as we may call it, is complete, the manner of development of each detail is inherent in the living light and thus will develop in just such and such a way. This, then, may be seen to be an object rather than an activity by some of our peoples, and the principle of this extremely strong energy focus being worshipped as the creator instead of unity or oneness from which all loves emanate. The third or vibrational distortion of infinity, light, or to use a technical term, limitless light, is the first manifestation visible to the eye of the body complex which we inhabit. This light, or what we have called the photon, is the simplest manifest being. In relationship to energy centers, it may be seen to be the center or foundation of all articulated energy fields. The second distortion, love, is the great activator and primal co-creator of various creations, using intelligent infinity. Each love, as we term the prime movers, comes from unity of infinite strength, the finite qualities being chosen by the particular nature of this primal movement. Love uses light and has the power to direct light in its distortions. Thus, vibratory complexes recapitulate in reverse the creation in its unity, thus showing the rhythm or flow of the great heartbeat, if you will use this analogy. As far as we are aware, we are in an infinite creation. There is a mystery-clad unity of creation, in which all consciousness periodically coalesces and again begins. Thus, we can only say we assume an infinite progression, though we understand it, to be cyclical in nature and, as we have said, clad in mystery. We assume the infinite intelligence had experienced an infinite number of octaves. The creation of which our logos is a part is a protean entity, which grows and learns upon a macrocosmic scale. The logos is not a part of time. The original logos' experience was viewed in space-time, small, its experience now more. All that is learned from experience in an octave is the harvest of that logos. Therefore, the harvest is further the nature of that logos. Therefore we say, as we now speak at this space-time, the nature of creation is such that the prelude to choice must encompass the laying of the foundation, the establishment of the illusion, and the viability of that, which can be made spiritually viable. The remainder of the densities is continuous refining of the choice. This also is greatly lengthened, as we would use the term. The choice is, as we put it, the work of a moment, but is the axis upon which the creation turns. This does not deny the process by which this nature has been achieved, but merely ratifies the product. The one original thought is the harvest of all previous, if we would use this term, experience of the creator by the creator. As it decides to know itself, it generates itself into that plenum, full of the glory and the power of the one infinite creator, which is manifested to our perceptions as space or outer space. A new logos incorporates all that the creator has experienced of itself. Each generation of this knowing begets a knowing, which has the capacity, through free will, to choose methods of knowing itself. Therefore, gradually, step by step, the creator becomes that which may know itself. The closer to the, shall we say, beginning of the manifestation of the logos, the star is, the more it partakes in the one original thought. This is for the purpose of refinement of the one original thought. Thus, the portions of the creator partake, less purely in the power of the original word or thought. The creator does not properly create, as much as it experiences itself. In the beginning of the creations set up by each logos, intelligent energy creates the complete potentials, both electrical, in the sense of the one we call Larson, and metaphysical. It then being the function of consciousness complexes, to begin to use the physical materials, to gain experience, to then polarize in a metaphysical sense. This metaphysical electricity is as important in the understanding, shall we say, of this statement, as is the concept of electricity. This concept deals with potentiated energy. The true mass of the potentiated energy is the strength of the field. This is also true metaphysically. In such a way, we may conveniently consider each density of being to have a greater and greater spiritual mass. Spiritual mass is that which begins to attract the outmoving and ongoing vibratory oscillations of beingness into the gravity, speaking in a spiritual sense, well of the great central sun, core, or creator of the infinite universes. That we speak of as gravity is a manifestation of a spiritual event or condition of livingness, and may be seen as the pressing towards the inner light love, the seeking towards the spiral line of light, which progresses towards the creator. Thus, the metaphysical and physical are inseparable. There is the corresponding and equally important metaphysical nature of gravity. The spiritual mass increases, shall we say, significantly, but not greatly until the gateway density. In this density, the summing up, the looking backwards. In short, all the useful functions of polarity have been used. Therefore, the metaphysical electrical nature of the individual grows greater and greater in spiritual mass. Thus, the seventh density being, the completed being, the creator who knows itself, accumulates spiritual mass and compacts into the one creator once again. The black hole, which manifests third density, is the physical complex manifestation of this spiritual or metaphysical state. The blackness of this ultimate spiritual gravity well, metaphysically speaking, is a concentration of white light being systematically absorbed, once again into the one creator, from which no light may be seen as it has been absorbed. Finally, this absorption into the one creator continues until all the infinity of creations have attained sufficient spiritual mass. The entire creation infinitely coalesces, the light seeking and finding its source, and thusly ending the creation. This octave density is both omega and alpha, the spiritual mass of the infinite universes, and all form once again the great central sun or creator, if you would so imagine it, of the intelligent infinity awaiting potentiation by free will. Thus, the transition of the octave is a process which may be seen to enter into timelessness of unimaginable nature. To attempt to measure it by our time measures would be useless. In each beginning there is the beginning from infinite strength. The logos creates all densities, both the space-time densities and the accompanying time-space densities. The logos has the plan of all the densities of the octave, in potential completion before entering the space-time continuum in first density. Free will acts as a catalyst. Consciousness then begins to have the potential to experience. The potentials of experience are created as a part of intelligent energy and are fixed before experience begins. However, there is always, due to free will acting infinitely upon the creation, a great variation in initial responses to intelligent energy's potential. Thus, almost immediately, the foundations of the, shall we call it, hierarchical nature of beings begins to manifest as some portions of consciousness or awareness learned through experience in a much more efficient manner because of the function of the will and, shall we say, the attraction to the upward spiraling line of light. There is a quantum, if you will, nature of each density, and these quanta may be seen to be of vibratory natures corresponding to color as we grasp this word. However, each density is of the metaphysical characteristic complex of its ray. Thus, in first density, the red ray is the foundation for all that is to come. In second density, the orange ray is that of movement and growth of the individual, this ray striving towards the yellow ray of self-conscious, manifestations of a social nature as well as individual. Third density being the equivalent, and so forth, each density being primarily its ray, plus the attractions of the following ray, pulling it forward in evolution, and to some extent coloring or shading the chief color of that density. However, the frequency that is the basis of each density is what may be called a true color. This term is impossible to define, given our system of sensibilities and scientific measurements, for color has vibratory characteristics, both in space-time and in time-space. The true color is then overlaid and tinged by the rainbow of the various vibratory levels within that density and the attraction vibrations of the next true color density. The nature of these vibratory patterns of our universe is dependent upon the configurations placed upon the original material or light by the focus, or love, using its intelligent energy to create a certain pattern of illusions or densities in order to satisfy its own intelligent estimate of a method of knowing itself. Thus the colors, as we call them, are as straight or narrow or necessary as is possible to express, given the will of love. A very great deal of creation was manifested without the use of the concepts involved in consciousness as we know it. The creation itself is a form of consciousness, which is unified, the logos being the one great heart of creation. The process of evolution through this period, which may be seen to be timeless, is most valuable to take into consideration, for it is against the background of this essential unity of the fabric of creation that we find the ultimate development of the logoi, which chose to use that portion of the harvested consciousness of the Creator to move forward with the process of knowledge of self. The harvest of the previous octave was the Creator of love manifested in mind, body, and spirit. This form of the Creator experiencing itself may perhaps be seen to be the first division of consciousness, as it had been found to be efficient to use the various densities which are fixed in each octave in order to create conditions in which self-conscious sublogoi could exist. This was carried out throughout the growing flower-strewn field of, as our simile suggests, the one infinite creation. The nature of true simultaneity is such that, indeed, all is simultaneous. However, in our modes of perception, we would perhaps more properly view the seeding of the creation as that of growth from the center or core outward. There is a center to infinity. From this center all spreads. Therefore, there are centers to the creation, to the galaxies, to star systems, to planetary systems, and to consciousness. In each case, we may see growth from the center outward. In the case of the galactic systems, the first manifestation of the logos is a cluster of central systems which generate the outward swirling energies producing, in their turn, further energy centers for the logos, or what we would call stars. Much of what we call creation has never separated from the one logos of this octave, and resides within the one infinite creator. That which is learned by one is known to all. To be aware of the nature of this communication is to be aware of the nature of the logos. Communication in such an environment is the communication of cells of the body. The sublogoi, then, have been in the position of refining the discoveries of what might be called the earlier sublogoi. Those what we would call early logoi, which chose lack of free will foundations, to all extents with no exceptions, founded logoi of the service to others path. Various logoi and sublogoi had various methods of arriving at the discovery of the efficiency of free will in intensifying the experience of the creator by the creator. This, shall we say, saga of polarity, its consequences and limits, were unimagined until experienced. However, in each case the experiment of veiling started, farther out from the center of galaxies. The particular logos of our galaxy has used a large portion of its coalesced material to reflect the beingness of the creator. In this way, there is much of our galactic system which does not have the progression of which we speak, but dwells spiritually as a portion of the logos. Of those entities upon which consciousness dwells, there is a variety of time-space periods during which the higher densities of experience are attained by consciousness. The logos has distributed itself throughout our galactic system. However, the time-space continua of some of our more central sun systems is much further advanced. The spiritual density or mass of those more towards the center of our galaxy is known. However, this is due to simply the varying timelessness states, during which the planetary spheres may coalesce. This process of space-time beginnings occurring earlier, shall we say, as we approach the center of the galactic spiral. The sublogos or sun is of the entire octave and is not that entity which experiences the learning teachings of entities such as ourselves. Its description is not easily explained in our language, for the sun has various aspects in relation to intelligent infinity, to intelligent energy, and to each density of each planet, as we call these spheres. Moreover, these differences extend into the metaphysical or time-space part of our creation. In relationship to intelligent infinity, the sun body is equally with all parts of the infinite creation, part of that infinity. In relation to the potentiated intelligent infinity, which makes use of intelligent energy, it is the offspring, shall we say, of the logos for a much larger number of sublogoi. The relationship is hierarchical in that the sublogos uses the intelligent energy in ways set forth by the logos and uses its free will to co-create, shall we say, the full nuances of our densities as we experience them. In relationship to the densities, the sun body, as we would say, may physically be seen to be a large body of gaseous elements undergoing the processes of fusion and radiating heat and light. Metaphysically, the sun achieves a meaning to fourth through seventh density, according to the growing abilities of entities in these densities, to grasp the living creation and co-entity or other self nature of this sun body. Thus, by the sixth density, the sun may be visited and inhabited by those dwelling in time-space, and may even be partially created from moment to moment by the processes of sixth density entities in their evolution. In this density, some entities whose means of reproduction is fusion may choose to perform this portion of experience as part of the beingness of the sun body. Thus, you may think of portions of the light that you receive as offspring of the generative expression of sixth density love. One example of logos that is sub to our sun is our mind-body-spirit complex. Every entity that exists would be some type of sub or sub-sub logos. This is true down to the limits of any observation, for the entire creation is alive. A planetary entity is so named only as logos if it is working in harmonic fashion with entities or mind-body complexes upon its surface or within its electromagnetic field. The creation of the one infinite creator does not have a metaphysical polarity, shall we say positive or negative, as we've been using the term. Entities through the level of planetary have the strength of intelligent infinity through the use of free will, going through the actions of beingness. It is only when the planetary sphere begins harmonically interacting with mind-body complexes, and more especially mind-body-spirit complexes, that planetary spheres take on distortions due to the thought complexes of entities interacting with the planetary entity.